Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Show. It's been goals galore in the Scottish Premiership, including sensational St Johnstone, happy holidays, but no stag do for the buddies. It's Rainbow Laces Month, raising awareness for LGBTQ+ inclusion, and to highlight that we speak to Hibees Pride. We also check in on League One Dunfermline Athletic, who are on par to return to the Championship. Hello, I am your host Andrew Slaven, and joining me is our friend down under, filmmaker and editor, Findlay Marks. Hello, Finn.
Hello.
No Laura Brannan this week, Finn. She's decided to go to the West End, I think.
Take in a show.
To take in a wee show, yes. So we have, from Sky Sports News, it's Andrew Dickson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, or good evening, I suppose, if you are listening in the evening and you're happy that Unai Emery is back on British shores.
Tremendous, absolutely tremendous. Just off air there, anyone listen, Andrew just told me that he does the screen tests for Sky Sports News. So what you don't know is it's taken me about 5 takes to do that intro. So what a start and what
an audition.
What a make I've done with Andrew. Yeah, what an audition. Look, it's been a pretty amazing weekend in Scottish football. But one thing that stood out for me, guys, I'm going to kick it off straight away. Ally McCoist on the wheel.
Oh. What do you think?
Do you know, I'm not sure. I'm leaning towards Egypt, I think, but have you got any clue?
Funnily enough,
yeah.
I don't think it's Egypt.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards Turkey.
What are you going to lock in?
I'll lock in Turkey.
Oh. If you're right, you win £82,000. Is it Turkey?
Absolutely amazing. I mean, he loves a quiz, our Ally, doesn't he?
He does love a quiz. He's a very learned man, Ally McCoist. Because I think he's obviously been around Scottish football, and in our consciousness is pretty much our whole lives, both as a player, obviously, but then as a pundit. And he's kind of been in the national psyche a bit with Question of Sport and stuff growing up. But I feel like the 2018 World Cup was really where he became Ally McCoist the pundit, like this kind of universally loved character, part of the British consciousness. Part of that was when he was the co-commentator to John Champion, ITV's coverage of games at the World Cup in Russia. He would just put in brilliant little tidbits of, facts of the local history. I think they were in Kaliningrad for one of the matches, and he was giving us the lowdown on what Kaliningrad was like and its history. And it's just, he's obviously a very learned man. I've got to admit, I've never heard of this show, The Wheel, before seeing this clip.
Hosted by Michael McIntyre, the comedian, where a contestant sits in the middle and is surrounded by celebrities, and then the question comes up, and these celebrities spin around this contestant in some sort of weird Hunger Games style thing, and it lands on whoever is going to be. It's like Wheel of Fortune in a way, but
Carol Smiley.
No, not Carol Smiley.
If I was ever to get bad news, I'd quite like to get it from Ally McCoist, because he just has this knack of making you feel great. Listeners may or may not know, I used to work at Rangers back in the day when Ally was manager, and was fortunate enough to get to know him quite well. And as anybody who works at a football club will tell you, whether it's Rangers or Celtic, St Johnstone a couple of seasons ago, if you're winning trophies, it's brilliant, it's great fun. You're going and you're on the pitch and you're filming and you're interviewing players and all the rest of it. But one of the highlights from my time at Rangers would be the 2013-14 season. So I think that was the season that Rangers won League One. At the end of that, as a lot of clubs do, Rangers had quite a few games on the pitch, charity matches and that kind of thing. So on a Tuesday afternoon, I got a phone call from Ally saying, "What are you up to on Friday night?" And I said, "Nothing." And he said, "Do you want a game on the pitch? My pals against your pals." I was like, "Right, brilliant, excellent." So so on Friday night, and this is kind of tying into the whole Ally makes everybody feel brilliant thing. So we rocked up, me, I think about 7 of my pals. We managed to get 13, 14 people. So like mainly my friends, but then kind of friends of friends and that kind of thing as well. Rocked up for a game at Ibrox. Unfortunately, Ali's pals included Gordon Jury and Rab McKinnon, amongst others.
Amazing.
So we played at Ibrox. We lost 9-4, which to be honest, I think was quite respectable. It's all right.
Yeah.
We scored 4 and we kept them to single figures. But after the game, Ali, the way he was on the wheel, which I also had never heard of before I saw the clip on social media, the way he was with that girl Helen, he was like that with everybody after the match, and any time I've ever seen him, he's just been like that as well. He's an absolutely top guy, and he is very good at a quiz as well, so I wasn't surprised that he got the
Oh, what a story, Andrew. That's class. Elsewhere, did anyone see the dad bod at Somerset Park?
Oh, taps off at Somerset Park. It is fantastic. I was like, what? Because obviously I'm in Melbourne.
Finn.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm in Melbourne right now, and it's kind of halfway through spring at the moment, so it does rain, but it's also 25 degrees. But it can't be that warm down in Ayrshire this time of the year.
I did see the picture and think to myself, Tam Courts has fairly let himself go since he went over to 100.
It does get very cold in here. I studied in here. Lovely wee place, but it is pretty cold. I wouldn't be in my boxer shorts at Somerset Park.
Make calm for Clarkson. Oh! Well, that seals it. And wow!
Amazingly, 29 goals across 6 games. Every single team got on the score sheet, Finn. It's been an exciting weekend, and I think we should start with Aberdeen absolutely pumping Hibs 4-1. What do you think about that?
Aberdeen at home are a pretty formidable force. They're very Jekyll and Hyde this season. They either seem to like lose 4-0 or win 4-0, and there's kind of nothing in between. But I think that's 5 wins from 6 at Pittodrie. We've got another absolute stoter of a goal from Leighton Clarkson, the 4th goal. I just like, there's a lot to be said about a beautifully placed first time finish, but honestly, I will always choose the player that feints to go around the goalkeeper before backheeling it into the net. That's to add to his collection of the shit pinger against St Mirren pretty near the start of the season, and his stunning 30-yard free kick winner against St Johnstone a couple of weeks after that. So I'm just a massive fan of this lad and the goals that he scores.
It feels very much, I think Aberdeen are going to be up, kind of battling for third spot all the way throughout the season. But for Hibs, Andrew, like, what's your take on them so far this season, and all of the Lee Johnsonisms that he comes out with in his post-match interviews?
Well, yeah, I was on the pod 3 weeks ago, and at that point I think Hibs were sitting third, and I was saying then that I was quite surprised by it, because any time I looked at Hibs results, they seemed to be losing. So now that they are losing, they're not third anymore. But yeah, a bit of a strange team. Lee Johnson, bit of an interesting guy. His pressers are certainly colourful, if not making total sense. I think if I was a Hibs fan, and I'm not, but I think if I was, I'd be kind of a bit concerned about the direction they're going in, because they are extremely inconsistent. And what you might find in the next few weeks is that opportunity for them and Aberdeen to get ahead and build up a bit of steam ahead of Hearts. That might well be lost, because I think probably what you're going to see in the next few weeks is, and we'll come on to talk about Hearts shortly, but Hearts, they ground out a good win at the weekend, and now that they don't have European football, now that there's a World Cup coming up where there's a break, where there's the opportunity to get some injured players back as well, because they've had a problem with that too. I'd imagine you're going to see a different sort of Hearts after the World Cup is out the way. So, Hibs maybe had that chance to build up a bit of steam. They haven't really taken it. And, the inconsistency that they've had with some comedy defending at Pittodrie, that kind of typified where they are at the moment, I think.
And a battle of the plastic fantastics, Kilmarnock, Livingston, David Martindale, delighted, obviously, but it's one of those back-to-back defeats for Kilmarnock when they'd actually gone on quite a decent little run. They're just going to have to go through these motions, Finn, to try and get themselves through it this season, but not worry about too much the bottom end of the table. This
is really the kind of game that you need to be looking to take something from, if not all 3 points, definitely 1 point, at home to Livy, because I do think Livy are better than Kilmarnock. That's borne out by the way that they play in the league table. But I think at home you need to be trying to take as many points as you can, especially when you've gone ahead twice and not been able to hold on to it. You can't really do that and expect to be pushing anywhere up the table. I think it's a really disappointing result, but at the same time, it's fair play to Livy for keeping going. working their way back into the game, and some really well worked moves as well. I think the winning goal was a really nice passage of play. It's gone in off an own goal, but I think the way that they'd worked the chance to create it was really good. But I think it's a bit of a sickener for Kilmarnock fans.
I hope Davy Martindale didn't wake up in a cold sweat through the night, having taken more points off a team wearing blue. It was a great result for Livy, wasn't it? I mean, and as you say as well, Finn, the build up to that goal, I mean, while it was a pretty calamitous own goal to be scoring, the build up was terrific. Really good football from Livy. They're a team who, I mean, I'll actually be quite surprised if Livy don't finish top six this season, with Aberdeen, Hearts and Hibs all at the right end of the table. It's going to be quite tough to get into the top six, but I think they're the team I'm looking at the moment and thinking, yeah, they're the ones that are capable of it.
I think the standout for me in that game was the Bruce Anderson strike. I mean, he's had his problems with injuries coming in from last season and a little bit into this one as well. But a top player for me. I think if he just gets a good run, he has got the capability of hitting double figures if he can stay fit this season. Moving on to Saturday, and Dundee United down in the dumps once again. They do all the hard bits. You know, you equalise with a few minutes to go, but when you're at Celtic Park and under Ange Postecoglou, I think there was a really funny moment in Clyde Super Scoreboard where Hugh Keevins was saying about how Celtic, yet again, they talk about having loads of chances in the Champions League, and that's a positive thing, but then they can still go and drop points to Dundee United at Celtic and giving it a real big negative chat, and then in the middle of it all, Celtic go and score 2 goals to make it 4-2. It's just Celtic just don't know. They don't stop. Ange said it in his post-match. It's a cliche now in Scottish football. Celtic don't stop, but I mean, they are almost unstoppable.
The difference in mentality, not to always have to contrast the two sides of the Old Firm against each other, and we'll come on to talk about this, I'm sure, just in a little minute about the Rangers St Johnstone game, but it's that thing, the difference in mentality is that Celtic can concede a goal in the 87th minute, and even straight away, like I saw when Dundee United, the equaliser goes in, Joe Hart straight away just grabs the ball from the net and throws it as hard as he can to the centre circle. There's just like nah, come on, let's just keep going. And it's almost a formality, like an inevitability that they will get the chance to score a winning goal. As it turned out, they actually got 2, and it was a much more comfortable cushion. But we were making this point in the podcast a couple of weeks ago that the time periods that Celtic score tend to be at these points in the game where other teams might be easing off slightly, thinking, oh, we're almost at halftime, oh, it's almost the end of the game. And that's when Celtic are just so dangerous because they score such a high proportion of their goals at those points in the matches. But it's hugely impressive. Like, it's at 17 goals scored in 4 league games now for Celtic. Correct. So they're just continuing, you know, a slight aberration at St Mirren Park aside. They're kind of just steamrolling their way through the opposition this year. I
don't think you'll find too many Rangers fans admitting it, but there will be quite a lot of them looking at Celtic and thinking, I wish my team did that. The way that Celtic can find a winner late on. I mean, there was so much talk for such a long time about the fast starts that you get from Celtic, and the fact that if you can just keep them at bay in the first half, you might well pick them off in the second half because they'll run out of steam. Now you're seeing from Celtic that they are actually going the full 90, and you know, I mean, like a couple of goals in stoppage time at the weekend. It's not the first time they've done that this season, where they've either equalised or they score a couple of goals late on. I mean, Ross County earlier in the season is one that springs to mind, where what was it, like 5-6 minutes to go and then a stoppage time winner as well. They have that ability, and that's the kind of thing that wins you championships. They're absolutely in control of the title race.
Yeah, Finn, you were right when you said 17 goals in 4 league games for Celtic. For St Mirren, it's 17 goals conceded in just 6 games on the road for them, as they lost to Ross County 3-2. I said this last week or last time out. The way Ross County play under Malcolm Mackay, it's so positive, but they are so fragile, hence why they are where they are in their table. But they can be, it's just similar to Celtic in a way in the Champions League, okay, at a lesser level. They've not been able to take their chances, and at this weekend they did against St Mirren, who have real ambition to be challenging for third themselves. It's a real interesting contrast between the sides. I don't know what your take is on that, Finn.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of that about Ross County, and I think we've talked about Livingston in previous weeks as well as being a club that it's almost like a law of averages. It's like over the season it tends to level itself out in terms of there's some games where you feel like they should have got something from that game but they didn't, and then there's other games where you're like that game could have gone either way, and they find a way to do it. And I think that was one of the games for Ross County at the weekend was, I think looking from the other point of view, I think St Mirren, kind of like Killie, will be really annoyed that they haven't gotten themselves in front. They didn't take anything from the game, not even a point, rather than all three. One of the things that I did just want to raise quickly was how impressed I've been with Mark O'Hara in the St Mirren midfield this season. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. I know Laura picked him out in pre-season as a really good signing for St Mirren, and obviously he's played under Robinson at Motherwell for quite a few years, so he's comfortable playing in his systems and playing under this manager. But he's been absolutely terrific. He's wearing the captain's armband now, and he's been leading from example in that midfield. And he scored again. It is one of only 2 league goals he scored, but the other one was against Celtic. So he does score good goals and important goals at important times. But I think it is that thing of, I think St Mirren will be annoyed that they didn't take anything from the game. But conversely, as you said, I think Ross County, this was a game where they grafted so hard and they got what they deserved out of the game in the end.
The issue for me with St Mirren is losing 5 of their 6 away matches, and if they do have that ambition, which has always been the case when St Mirren have came up, they've always thought they should be challenging top 6. That is a record that they're going to have to try and change. Moving on to Sunday and St Johnstone, kind of the headline story of the weekend, I suppose, but St Johnstone, tremendous, not in possession, but certainly in front of goal, 2-1 winners against Rangers. Look, everyone will be talking about Rangers and them dropping points and whatnot, but Callum Davidson has got this machine with St Johnstone running again, just like he did when they won the double just a few seasons ago, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great result for St Johnstone, and the 2 goals, I mean, particularly the first one is an absolute screamer. The second one, a great finish from Nicky Clark. It's the kind of finish that we've seen from him over many years. Absolutely, great result for St Johnstone, but for me this is largely down to Rangers not taking the chances that they had. I mean, there was a stat box came up around the half-hour mark, I think, on the Sky Sports coverage of the game, and every single St Johnstone statistic was 0. So it was like 0 shots, like 0 on target, 0 corners, 0 everything. Rangers, I think, meanwhile, had 17 shots, but only 3 on target. I mean, I think they ultimately had 20 corners. They seem to be heading for a world record number of corners at one point, because I think they had something, they'd hit double figures after about 15 minutes. They had so much pressure, but it's just so reflective of Rangers at the moment, and the fact that their build-up is very predictable, very laboured. You know what they're going to do. They've relied a lot on Cholak to score goals, but aside from him, there's not really anybody else stepping up at the moment.
I suppose, Finn, the whole atmosphere around Rangers now, you look at the earful that Tavernier was getting after the match from fans as well. This talk of Van Bronckhorst maybe losing his job before the World Cup, for me, feels unlikely. But what are your thoughts?
I think it feels unlikely because of what we know the Rangers board to be like. They're very cautious. They tend not to make, I wouldn't call it a rash decision if they fired Van Bronckhorst, but they tend not to make these kind of like instinctive, emotional decisions. It tends to be a decision that they'll make usually when it's getting a bit too late. I think he should go, but I don't think he will before the World Cup. I think it's inevitable, because I think, as football fans, you know how this plays out. You know that when a manager loses the fan base, it's really difficult to get back from that, to recover from that. And I think I can't see much of a groundswell of support of Rangers supporters saying, got to give Gio time, like he just needs one more window. I think that ship sailed. And I think you can see it in the players as well. I mean, every single player looks like they're a shadow of who they were last season. And I think that was summed up in the build-up to the St Johnstone opening goal, where John Lundstrom goes on this, I use air quotes around this lung-bursting run over about, 40, 50 yards, unchallenged, makes an unforced error, loses possession, and then just basically stops. He's just like, I knew that was going to happen. Like, kind of, doesn't attempt to track back or do anything. And I wouldn't call it a quick counter-attack, because it takes quite a while for St Johnstone to get up before they eventually get the chance to score. But it was just indicative of, I think, of where the players are. I think it's inevitable. If it were me, I would definitely sack him now. I know it would be money, but you've got to pay it at some point anyway. I think the fee quoted was about £6 million, which seems an exorbitant amount of money for a release clause to be from a contract if you're firing a manager, especially in Scottish football. But I think, yeah, to me, it would make most sense. He goes now, you get an interim coach for the 2 matches before the World Cup break. Then you get a new manager in so that he's got essentially a mini pre-season, a full month to get to know the squad, to get to know who he wants to keep and who he doesn't in January. And you can kind of try and make as best a go as you can in the second half of the season. I think if you're being realistic, of course, the league title's not over. You can't say a league title's over in November, but just Celtic are so strong, and I think the scoreboard pressure that they're putting up, they know that they could probably make a few slip-ups and mistakes along the way, and it doesn't really matter because Rangers are going to drop points anyway. You know, you look, I think since Van Bronckhorst come in, he's dropped 26 points in the league in less than a year. That's not acceptable if you're a manager of one half of the old firm.
Funnily enough, though, if you looked at the start of last season under Steven Gerrard compared to this season, the stats are very similar. Very similar. It might also be, I know Rangers got to the Europa League final. It might be indicative of just the way Rangers were heading with some of those players. They hung on to the Europa League as a bit of a carrot, but the Championship didn't really play their way. I just wonder if Rangers just haven't brought enough competition for places, and there are a lot of kind of, you know, safe areas in the Rangers squad for me. But look, I have to praise St Johnstone. It was a huge day for James Brown. Good singer, good strike of the ball, and Nicky Clark obviously scoring against his former team. But moving on swiftly to Hearts against Motherwell. You spoke about it, Andrew, about Hearts now having a bit of breathing space, but 10 men Hearts as well. Really strange for a side so early on in the game to take the lead under 10 men. But do you want to talk me through it, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good result for Hearts. As you say, losing the man in the first half. I think the sending off as well was the right decision.
Agreed.
I mean, a dangerous tackle, but from there, Hearts rallied quite well. Andy Halliday, I heard him on the radio last week saying that he'd only ever scored, I think, 4 headers in his career, and 3 of them had been at Hearts. So that's now 4 after the opener, which was a great header as well, I've got to say. He's clearly been practicing that. Second one, a lovely finish as well. Yeah. The strange one for me was the penalty that Hearts conceded. I thought Craig Gordon was a little bit fortunate. I think the fact that Toby Sibic is very, very close to the action just about saves them. Hearts, though, fought to the end as well. We were talking earlier about, you know, Celtic with their late goals. Hearts got theirs a minute from the end as well, albeit it was a penalty, but great composure from Lawrence Shankland, who's having a good first season at Tynecastle, and a good win for Hearts, and they're starting to creep up the table a little bit more. And Aberdeen have been in good form, but I think what we were talking about before about Aberdeen's home form being great, but their away form not being very good, I would expect over the course of time Hearts will get ahead of them and once again finish third. And results like they got at the weekend against Motherwell are very indicative of what they're capable of this season.
Well, it's been an excellent weekend in the top flight, but it was an excellent weekend across the board. You look at the Championship, a top-of-the-table clash between Ayr United and Morton. That ended 1-1. Partick Thistle lost 3-2 to Dundee, and the Jags were sitting second at half-time. They actually finished the day 7th. That's 4 league losses on the bounce now. They've conceded 14 goals. Firhill on fire. In League One, Peterhead still without an away win this season. Clyde still struggling themselves, now up to 11 consecutive defeats, with their latest coming against Airdrie, and that's days after sacking Danny Lennon. But a great turnout for the top of the table derby, which we'll get on to later on in the show. But in League 2, Dumbarton back on top and still unbeaten at home, 2-0 over in Stranraer. And Albion Rovers, they busted a few coupons, holding Stirling Albion, who were on a run of 6 straight wins, to a 1-1 draw.
Football, bloody hell.
No side in the top 4 leagues in Scotland has a more commanding lead at the top of the table than Dunfermline in League 1. 6 points separate the Pars to the closest challengers, FC Edinburgh, who were Edinburghed by the mighty Queen of the South on Saturday. Dunfermline were relegated to the 3rd tier for the first time since 2016, but are on track for an immediate return. So Ben Crawford, a big Pars fan from Pars Review, joins us now. And Ben, I know you were at the game, and a lot of people have seen the atmosphere. It looked just electric. Obviously, it was at Falkirk. I mean, about 7,000, almost 2,000 Dunfermline fans. It must have been great to be there for the big win.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the first time in a good few amount of years, obviously COVID in between, but a good few amount of years since we've sold out a full away end. It was just a brilliant atmosphere to be involved in, obviously. It was a good turnout for the full game, to be fair. I think I read it was maybe the 5th biggest in Scotland at the weekend. So great to be a part of, obviously. It's the type of atmospheres you want to be in as a fan, as a player, anything. The game wasn't actually that great a spectacle. A lot of the kind of entertainment came for the stands, but it was obviously good to get the win. And obviously the difference between us winning and losing the game would have been a 1 point gap over Falkirk, and now it's 7. So it's really set a statement for the rest of the league. And I've seen a lot of Falkirk fans now almost kind of giving up on it and saying that they potentially are only looking for playoffs now, considering the gap that's opened up. Now, obviously, no league titles are handed out in November, but it's great that we've opened up such a large gap already.
It's just a good feeling, though, isn't it, Ben? Because the way that last season ended, going down to League One, it's not easy to get back out of that. What is the feeling amongst fans now under James McPake, who's taken over from John Hughes?
At the end of last season, I know a lot of the kind of younger boys around me in the section Northwest that's been a massive success since it's came into fruition after COVID. A lot of them were saying when we got relegated last season that they didn't think the section would be able to build up as well in League One just because of the games and the attraction of those games or lack of attraction. But I think, and I kind of always believed it anyway, that if the team was successful on the pitch in League One, just like any other league, and fans are obviously fickle in this way, that if it's going well on the pitch, they'll turn up. We were still selling out the section Northwest even last season when we weren't great, especially the games against Wraith Rovers and stuff. But I think we sold out in a game against Morton or Ayr. It was one of the two. So it's been a good thing to bring into the club. And as you said, the atmosphere is definitely changing now that we're winning games. And McPake has come in and brought a new kind of centre life to the team. Good signings in the likes of Benedictus and Chris Hamilton added in. He's done a decent enough job in the transfer window, and hopefully we can maybe add a couple in January just to push us over the line.
Dunfermline's defence has been a great source of strength so far this season, Ben. 6 clean sheets in 7 away games, only 7 league goals conceded in 14 matches, which is the best defensive record in all 4 divisions in Scotland. Kyle Benedictus, has he been pretty central to that?
He's been the main thing that's changed it all for us, really. Even on Saturday, was immense at the back. I find it a bit blasé to just say he's akin to the likes of Norrie McCarthy and stuff, but a lot of Dunfermline fans are kind of claiming that comparison just because of how dominant he's been. I feel really comfortable watching the defence this season. For last season, for example, having Cole Donaldson and Effie Ambrose at the back, to now having Benedictus next to the likes of Rhys Breen, who's been a transformed player. Sam Fisher coming in on loan for Dundee as well, who's looked really good. Chris Hamilton's been a really good addition. The only thing with him is he seems to get booked almost every game that he plays. Probably needs to shut him up on a wee bit, because he will pick up a suspension very soon. But overall, Benedictus has made us far more solid, and just you don't feel like we're really going to concede. And that's obviously a big thing when you're going for a league title. With that defensive record, we're not going to lose very many games if we continue that way.
Ben, you were saying about the launch of the Northwest section for the supporters. I mean, you're looking at the crowds. The last home game, obviously the crowd at Falkirk was great as well, the travelling support, but the last home game you had 4,500 for the Celtic Hearts match as well. Does it feel a little bit as though maybe Dunfermline, in taking a step backwards, are giving themselves a chance to take 2 or 3 forward again, because they're a bigger club than League One? I think we would all agree on that, and it seems to be that having had such a disappointing season last season, when I think the expectation was probably that you would challenge at the other end of the table, actually, to have then gone down, do you feel you're now actually getting the platform to really propel forward again?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a massive part of it. Obviously, as I said, it was relatively successful last season in terms of bringing in numbers to that section. It seems to be the place everyone wants to be when you come to East End Park if you're in the home support. And I've got to give credit to the people that have set it up. Jason Canning and his dad set it up, and they work night and day at improving the atmosphere at East End Park. They've painted the murals on the wall, the displays that they set up, fundraising, so the fans put their money in for those as well, and it just makes it a spectacle for everyone to be involved in. Last season was probably one of the most enjoyable seasons I had supporting the club. despite it being so terrible on the pitch, just because the atmosphere was amazing.
Do you feel there's a lot of buy-in from the club as well, Ben? Are the club kind of liaising with fans to try and get that atmosphere? Because I'm kind of leading into like last year, the new ownership coming in from Germany. We've not really heard too much about what's going on with that. Is there anything you can kind of tell us?
In terms of the German owners, I mean, they are here every now and then. I see them sometimes when you come into the club shop area in the stadium before games. Sometimes, most of the time, they do go back to Germany and then come back for certain games and stuff. So from their end, obviously, they've put a lot of funding into the academy set up and hoping to get the new training facilities set up. I think on the recruitment side, they've not really made massive strides in that yet. But yeah, the club have got a good buy-in with the younger element of the support. I think David Cook coming in as the new CEO, he's really wanting to buy into that, and that was reflected in the season ticket prices that were very favourable for the younger fans. Ultimately, that led to the Northwest being fully sold out in basically every game now. So you've got to love the fact that the club are actually wanting to buy into it and wanting to invest in it.
And Stevie May! Bedlam! Chaos! Euphoria in the away stand! Blue limbs everywhere!
So this is the time of year Rainbow Laces teams up with different sports across the country to help bring visibility to the LGBTQ plus community. Of course, it doesn't matter what your sexuality is, but sadly, it's still an issue in some cultures, even in this day and age, 2022. But we're all about Scottish football here, so we wanted to find out what the attitudes are like specifically in our game and if there's still a bit of work to do. So joining us now, we've got Chloe Ainslie and Julie Cuthbertson from Hibees Pride. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us our time, because it's quite a burning issue, really. And a lot of the time, a lot of the things that are going on through football, like give racism the red card, these things always just pop up now and then. And okay, there's a regularity, but you know, it should be an ongoing discussion rather than just once a year. Julie, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's part of the reason why we've kind of formed this group, Hibees Pride, because like you say, it shouldn't just be, you know, once or twice a year. You want it to be something that has got a presence every week at the game, outside the game as well, you know, on all social media channels and stuff like that, trying to look at different ways, different activations to kind of highlight the issues that still exist basically for LGBTQIA plus people in the game today. So get your mouth around that one, yeah.
I mean, it's great that you guys do what you do, but you've got involved in it for a reason. You obviously are football fans, but you know, have you had any bad experiences, Chloe, kind of getting involved with this?
Fortunately, not as many as I was fearful of happening. Though it was usually at the bigger games that are more heavily condensed, like Rangers and even like older rivals like Falkirk and Hearts. And a lot of the times, obviously, you get some very homophobic chants, and we had an incident of that recently a wee while ago with Falkirk, and it was quite disheartening because it just it takes you out of something that you're meant to enjoy, because football is at its core, it's meant to be a community sport. It's meant to be about people coming together to enjoy something, and it was just disheartening to know that still existed. But fortunately, because Hibees Pride had formed by that time, we were actually able to do something about it. We were able to reach out to Hibs and reach out to Falkirk directly and actually get some communication and some understanding about it. So even on that kind of basic, just reaching out, acknowledging something went wrong, and even the clubs endorsing the supporters clubs feeling like this should be resolved, that already in itself for me is quite positive, even when there are bad experiences that happen.
How welcoming and inclusive do you feel that Scottish football is in general to the LGBTQ plus community? Like, is it something that you feel like it's kind of indicative of where society is in general, or do you feel that Scottish football as an entity is maybe even slightly behind where we are culturally in a wider context?
Yeah, I do think Scottish football is further behind in society. And I think a lot of that to do with, you know, the historical roots, kind of working class men. You guys will maybe have experienced it yourself, you know, when a bunch of guys get together, sometimes all morals and etiquette go out the window, you know. So football and particularly Scottish football still suffers a little bit from that. It kind of splits into two camps for me. One is the kind of people who do support you but still think it's okay to use casual kind of homophobic statements like, oh, that's so gay or whatever. And then there's people who are just overtly homophobic, and those two camps still exist in Scottish football and are fairly prevalent, because we still hear chants probably at a lot of games which are homophobic, and people will join in even if they don't necessarily agree with it because of the tribal mentality.
One thing that I want to ask is the support that you might be getting from the SFA or from Hibs, but also Rainbow Laces. What are Rainbow Laces kind of giving you the tools to do your jobs?
I think primarily the thing that that Rainbow Laces is best at is visibility for the majority of that month, because it's now synonymous with the month of November, which is a good thing. It means that there's a place for that to happen, but that in itself can kind of contribute to an idea that, oh, this is the only month that we're allowed to talk about these things, and we're allowed to maybe push the discussions further. And that's hopefully the whole idea of that we're going to go forward with, is just really pushing the conversation forward and keeping ourselves present and involved all year round, because gay people exist all year round. We don't just magically come out from under a rock every November to harass people. You know what I mean?
From the club's perspective, obviously we're really closely affiliated with Hibs. I mean, obviously they want to be a club for all in the community, and that's part of the reason why we are working so closely together with them, because it's really important to them. It's not, a lot of people will kind of say, oh, it's virtue signalling and all that kind of stuff. That's not our experience in Hibees Pride. We've had loads of support from the club, both financially and with time. Having that backing and that close relationship is so important, because it does start to bring other fans on board as well. It's not like we're just operating on our own. The club are basically standing up and going, actually, guys, this club is a club for everybody. We've got the screens now at Easter Road, so they'll put up the Hibs badge with the rainbow background and things like that, and they're going to continue to do that every game as well. But they're totally supportive of embracing anything that we've got in terms of suggestions. We've got a whole long list of different things we want to do, and we've chatted about them with the club, and there's not any that they've said no. We've talked about potentially doing something with a strip or a training kit or something like that. They're on board with that. I don't know if you guys noticed the Partick Thistle away strip this season has got the rainbow stripes down the side. That for me is absolutely brilliant, and Hibs are definitely committed to doing something like that. And it's really important, because you do want to keep it fresh. You don't want to just kind of feel like you're losing impetus, basically, because that's something people are just used to seeing every week.
Even as you were saying, we've got the screens at Easter Road and the flag comes up every week, and we've also got the Choose Hibs campaign. It was kind of the precursor to it, and we are a part of it. There's a part in it that says Choose Hibees Pride, because it's following the whole motif from Trainspotting. And even just the fact that it's involved alongside such other, alongside the names of legends and, other things that we've done, and the women's team. And it just means that even nicer just to see that Hibs had really taken that extra mile to incorporate us as part of their larger identity and their larger operation. And it was just so comforting to see that, we really were feeling like we were just being so supported and so open with them.
It's wonderful to hear about how the club has been trying to be so much more inclusive of supporters from all different types of backgrounds. Just staying on the kind of like the positive aspect of it, what does it actually make you feel being able to be part of a community within the Hibs community that is able to celebrate who you are as people and allow both things to kind of to be there at the same time? How does that feel? Because I think, in a wider context, being able to come together around the love of a football club and being able to celebrate that as one specific thing, and this sense of community is the best thing about being a football fan. It's a sense of community that can be given to people that otherwise might not have had one. How does it feel from a positive point of view, being able to celebrate both your love of your football club and who you are as people in the midst of that?
Well, for me, football's always been a part of my life. That's where I think I've been going since I was 7 or 6. Like, I was tiny, and I always went with my dad and my 2 sisters, and so football's really been important to me. It's been a place of, as you say, it's been a place where I could meet so many amazing new people. I've been able to, I learned how to be a lot more expressive because of it, because it's a new thing to get excited about and get interested in, and getting to yell a couple of things every game is actually quite fun as well. But But even
the
then, when I
football's less good, though, isn't it? The football's less good, but you're a Hibs fan, you know.
yeah. But, and then obviously as I got older, and I realised more things about myself, and I learned more things about football as a wider context, it just means that now I'm in a position where I can really merge these two parts of myself. Like I can merge this part of my family and my community, and this thing that means a lot to me and has allowed me to really cultivate a lot of parts of myself, and also a part of me that's developed outside of it. And ultimately it means that I can possibly get involved and maybe help and change things and help other people find community and comfort. Like obviously not all down to me, but it just means that I can be part of something that's really important and something that's kind of larger than itself in some respects. And it really means a lot that I can have that opportunity at this point in my life.
I'm 52 now. I've been going to Easter Road since I was 15. I'm obviously quite a bit older than you, Chloe. I started going with my dad, and then he got fed up with it because it was terrible. So I just went on my own. All my friends were Hearts fans, so I just decided to go in from Pennycook every week or every second week on my own. I even started going to away games on my own, on public transport or supporters buses and things. So for me, going back to that time, and even kind of 15, 20 years, over a period of time where you've been going on your own, and being a lesbian is kind of like you've always have that. Well, I always had a fear that I was going to get some kind of abuse. I've been abused at football by my own fans, by opposition fans. So for me to come together in this group now, it's honestly such a relief more than anything. It's that safety of I know that I can meet with these people and nothing's going to happen to me. I'm not going to get abused. I'm supported. I'm with like-minded people. So from that side of it, that's a massive positive for me. So yeah, it's we've both got a very different perspective on it because Chloe's a lot younger than me. She's maybe not had to suffer the abuse.
Yeah, I think in that regard, I have been pretty lucky because I've grown up with quite a supportive family and a really, really strong network of found family and friends. And I definitely will say I've not been through as awful a time as you probably have been, Julie. But I also I still want to help. I still want to be a part of it. I still want to kind of use because I'm just a little lesbian. I'm only so I can I love both my LGBT identity and I love Hibs, and it just to marry the two just makes the most sense. And if it ends up resulting in positive change, comfort for people, and safety, that's all I could really ask for.
I'm sure both of you have a vision of it being something that is not an issue in the future, but is that a realistic vision in terms of getting everybody to accept everybody for what they are and who they are, or is that something that's always going to be too ambitious?
I think to assume that every single person will become tolerant is probably just in an ideal world, but that should never ever be able to just sort of make you feel hopeless about it, because even if you can just look after and make friends and with even just a small amount of people, that in itself is a positive impact. And we're not here trying to save the world or anything like that. We're just here to make our club, which we love to the bottom of our hearts, make it a good place for future generations and for the current generations and for everybody, and just try and do something that maybe just wasn't possible a wee while ago, a couple decades ago.
Going back to what Julie said earlier on in our chat, how when she was going to games as a 15-year-old and the time then seems a lot different now. Chloe, you even said yourself you didn't go through maybe some of the things that Julie had to go through, and that gives me a crumb of comfort that maybe times have changed and we are moving in the right direction, albeit there is still a long way to go. I just wonder, how long will it take? Give me a number.
Oh, we'll be here all day if I give you a number.
That's true. Too many numbers.
But yeah, what I was really meaning to say was obviously I've definitely not been through as hellish a time as Julie is, but I don't think that as a gay person you necessarily have to go through a certain amount of trauma to have your involvement in the advancement of LGBT issues and support, have it be questioned. And not that that's what I'm saying has happened, but it's just I really want to know that, you know, since I've had a relatively better time of it, like I've not had as bad an experience of it, but I still want to help, and I still want to kind of make it a help and just make things better and just be involved and make sure that that never pops up again. And even when it does, like I've at least been brought up in enough confidence to combat it and to stand up to it.
I think for me, Chloe, when I look at it, I don't think, I suffered a lot of trauma. I went through, like, obviously I've experienced some abuse and various different things, but the way I look at it now is that standing up to that and going to Pride and doing that, that's why we are where we are today, because people are doing what we're doing now in Hibees Pride. That's the way things do change, because we're bringing these issues to the forefront. It absolutely fills my heart with joy to know that we have Hibees Pride and lots of other LGBT supporters networks around the country and across the world, and that things are changing. Like you say, it's, you know, we wouldn't even be having this conversation even probably 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But for me, I absolutely, I'm actually really happy that, you know, people like Chloe don't have to go through what, you know, some of the things that people of my generation and people before me. I mean, I never went through half as much as what people before me went through. So, you know, it's definitely moving, but look how long it's taken. I mean, we're just at the point now. I started going to football when I'm 15. I'm 52 now. We're just at the point now where we actually can start. So if you want to put a number on it, you know, we could still be talking about another 20, 30 years before we start to see significant change. But you can't let that hold you back. You've just got to keep addressing the issues as they come up and keep trying to move forward to change the kind of narrative on where we are in society and in football for LGBT people.
Thanks a lot to Ben Crawford from Pars Review. Thank you to Chloe and Julie from Hibees Pride as well. Really interesting chat that. And do stay tuned for a longer version of that conversation. We're going to stick that out at a later date because it deserves the eyes and ears across such a really important campaign. But Finn, Andrew, it's been a pleasure speaking to you both as always. We'll be back next Tuesday. So until then, go and listen to something else now. Bye.